work you do, is we do read those things, you know, either the, hey, look out for the weather, you know, kind of thing.
Well, I was telling Ani, the one I sent yesterday, I thought it was a typo. It says that we're getting a film today. And Jerry Rainey from the school district let me know that he looked it up and it's an actual term.
What's the word again?
Thump.
Thump. What's a
Yeah,
thump?
it's just a heavy snow in a short period of time.
That's what Lois gives you when you start talking smack.
Again, welcome here this morning.
Randy's also on our Fairfield County Alliance board.
Oh, nice.
AEP, investors and partners for a very long time. So we
Again, thank you and welcome.
Anybody else that doesn't want to talk this morning? No, I'm gonna shut up.
I'm on your mind. Nope.
I'm just trying to be a smart ass and not working very well at it.
John, 14 minutes, you're on.
14 minutes. Everybody laughed. Well, good morning. How are you? There we go. So I just wanted to give an update on where we're at with the master plan process for the airport, and then a little bit of feedback from the last meeting that we had when we presented. Since that last meeting, we've had one of our esteemed colleagues move on to greater pastures, Rick Zabrak, so I don't think he's going to help me today. Greener pastures, yeah. But you know, I have Michael Caper with me, and then I was hoping some of my other board members would join in today, as well as our engineer. Any follow-up questions? But a group effort here to update the master plan. As we discussed in the last meeting, last update, where we've left the planning process through the study, through the interviews, through the research that we've done, is that for our airport growth, hangar development is one of the key tenets. We subsequently are working on many other different projects that are FAA grant related. So that would mean upkeep and improvements to the airport with pavements and things like that. But one of the key areas that is listed in this master plan update that is not FAA eligible for grants are these hangars. So that's why you get this small snapshot. There is a broader snapshot, and I'd love to talk at length about the broader snapshot, but I'm sure you don't want to hear about that today. So the master plan has discussed and researched and came up with what they find to be three key components to airport growth. Right now is a 10-unit T hangar. We talked about our full capacity, no rooms at the end, for about 6 years now. That is a relief for that, because we don't see an anticipated change in the want for T hangars. That list remains at 25 or 26 people right now for a waiting list for those T hangars. 4 60 by 60 commercial style hangars. These are, and we'll get into this. These are what you see on the screen here. In this area, these are what we define as corporate hangars for corporate entities. Not necessarily their base of operations for their non-related, but could be for aeronautical related corporation.
Which four?
I'm sorry, my green things would be these 4. So that's what we would call a box hangar.
So it looks like 2, but it's 4.
Yeah. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
They'll be built. They would be built in 2 buildings of 4 hangars. So I'll start with the T hangars. Again, this was in the last meeting. The main discussion was the need, right? And are we priced too low? So we went forward and did a pricing analysis around the region. So as you can see, Middletown is kind of between Dayton and Cincinnati, Union County, Perry County, Newark, Pickaway, and Knox. Those are the primary ones that we looked at for as far as pricing goes on T-unit hangars. Delaware doesn't have as many T-unit hangars. We didn't include them in the pricing. They are around the same as our airport, but general aviation is just not what their interests are. So what we found is that depending on the age of the hangar, we're within the ballpark. There's not an outlier. We may be even pushing to be an outlier depending on pricing of these new T hangars. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that no new hangar development has happened in the region for this general aviation category. we will be the newest, nicest hangars in Central Ohio. They'll have their own electricity, they'll have their own access. Restrooms may be even very close by, and they're really next to the terminal and the fuel farm. So if you have a general aviation and you're not tied to an airport, which most people are, we're gonna have the best around. So that,
Can
and, go
I
ahead.
ask a question
Yeah.
on that? So I've noticed that Ohio State's building new hangars. Is there a reason they're not included in your list here?
Yeah, so Ohio State wouldn't be the competition on the T hangar, on general aviation. General aviation is just your guy who owns a plane. He wants to go to the closest airport that is within, a nice area, and fly in and out in his Cessna. We don't anticipate people in Fairfield County would drive to Ohio State to fly there. They are developing commercial, and we'll talk about them on the commercial side. So these are our competitors on the general aviation side. Let me get to that one here first. So we just kind of looked at that small Central Ohio snapshot, and then we took a larger look at some of the T hangars that are available at what we call feeder airports. Feeder airports are close to your major metro, but they are not handling corporate traffic in the sense like Allegiant, like at Rickenbacker, or DHL or something like that. They're handling jet for business and general aviation like we are. So these are T hangars. You can see generally we're in the ballpark, we're a little low. Some of that is, Fernandina Beach in Jacksonville, they've got weather, they can fly all year. So they charge a little more because people want to be down in Florida. But compared to feeder airports or airports around major metro, we're in line with that pricing as well.
You've mentioned that a couple of times, but we're not on the list. So what is our number that you're saying?
Oh, we are Fairfield, that's the official designation. Fairfield.
We are Fairfield.
Yeah, it's just a category. So we are currently at 195 for our older style T hangars that were built in the 80s, I believe. And then 250 on our hangars that were built in the mid 2000s. So that is our price point.
I understand.
Sorry for that.
It's all right. Got it.
So next up, we had a discussion on the ROI, and we did look at the way we have to turn over that hangar. It's a quick process, but there will be lag time. So what we did is build in two scenarios. The 95% accurate or occupancy really reflects over 30 years, the hangars will be filled 95% of the time.
Right.
In the end, it's a very small difference in the return on the investment. It's 2 years. But obviously, we'd probably be somewhere in between those two. There have been times where we've had occupancy for 2 or 3 hangars over a period of a year. The last time that happened was the economic downturn, 2009-ish. It doesn't stay long. People will still fly their aircraft, but even then, it becomes really a dire situation when they sell it. They may just store it. And that's why we've never seen occupancy dip tremendously low. But those obviously come out to within 5% of each other over
The monthly lease rate there at $450. We go back a slide or two.
Yep.
That's like coming up on Nashville.
Yep. We would have competition with Newark and Middletown in Ohio, and then Nashville. Burke and Kiowa County aren't really a great comparison, but if you go to Cincinnati, there isn't really anything to compare to because Butler, which is the main feeder for Cincinnati, the majority of the jet traffic, has land leased their whole entire airport.
There's 26 people on your wait list. You're just locked and loaded and sure that 10 of them will pay $450.
Our policy is that they have to put a down payment on just to get on the wait list. That's how we are. Yeah, absolutely. I think
There's less than that now, probably 15.
Yeah, I mean,
It's kind of been-
we assigned 3 new hangars since the last meeting, so it was a decent turnover. What we anticipate is that some of the people that are already on the airfield will want that hangar that's closer, nicer, brand new. They're going to vacate to those $450 hangars, freeing up the 250, the 192, the starter type of hangars. That's our anticipation that would happen. If we find that number is too high, then we have to go into some kind of pricing strategy that would definitely impact the return on investment.
So the 50
$4,000 is just north of 3% on an annualized basis?
I have the,
Total cost of construction?
yeah, I have the spreadsheet. I don't remember that number. Do you remember that number?
I'm doing the math, it's just about 3%, right?
Yeah, I would have to have a spreadsheet on that.
I understand. And the proposal, maybe this isn't part of the proposal, but I'm just asking, is for that to be paid for in cash or bonded?
I believe what we discussed was a bond at the last meeting was probably the most effective way to do this. It's the way we've done other hangars. There was a discussion of cash. Obviously, these will pay for themselves. The 100% of the revenue would go into the paying of that. Somehow, I think we had a couple different ways, and Carrie had an idea too about how to take in that money into the airport, transfer it into the account that pays the bond.
Yeah,
money.
I'm sure there's.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I know, and I know that's like a secondary after, trying to figure out if you want to go forward, and then you think, okay, now how? And it's not the immediate question, it's a secondary question, but what I would be looking at as part of that analysis is, what is that money getting in terms of rate of return in the investment portfolio right now, the cash I'm saying, versus what would the cost of the debt be, if we were in a bonding situation, and kind of sorting it out that way, if you will.
Yeah, I don't think you would make, I don't think these hangars on just their rent alone would make you money more than other investment opportunities. I think the tangible benefits of having 10 more aircraft that need fuel, that need maintenance, that fly every day in and out, that attract people to want to be in Fairfield County and go to Texas Roadhouse for lunch. And I mean, it's just it's a cascading thing for the airport economy to have 10 more planes on the airfield. It gets us in another category of grants. If we had every plane in these, every hangar full of a plane, we would leap into another category in the FAA grant system just by having more aircraft on the field. It's called based aircraft. And that's some of our funding mechanism is how many aircraft register here in Fairfield County, which we have 94 right now.
Go ahead.
So that's pretty much the T hangar thought discussion. We're pretty much in a scenario where once the project with utilities kind of rearranges our sewer system, the land is prime and ready to go. So I think that opportunity, there's less unknowns than building in other places. These are generally flat, well-driven areas on the airport. Next stop is the commercial box hangars, which the master plan targeted for 3,600 square foot. So that's 80 by 80, or I'm sorry, 60 by 60. And this is because of the critical aircraft that we are, that the FAA says this is where you should be in your business model, based on geography, based on flight pattern. We have existing potential leases now for these. Actually, this, if built, would probably fill up immediately just on people would want to move into these because they're nicer, newer, they're going to have office space, things like that. However, we anticipate that we would create a proposal process to lease this hangar because we want it to have the most economic driver as possible. So we would look to potential tenants to demonstrate why their business would be good in this opportunity. I have 2 letters right now for commercial operators that would love to base their operation here and move their operation here, and another that is based at the airport, who, if had the space, he could open up his own dealership for helicopters. And Jeff, you met him, he has some big plans. I have another business that's a major business in town that has based their jet in another airport because there's no space for ours now. The only space big enough for a jet is Hangar A, and it currently has a jet in it now. And we just don't have anywhere else to put them. As you can see, just an outlay of the current, anything that's not shaded full is existing. So it would fit well within the flight line and the apron. Again, a nice flat area. So we did another study. These are commercial box style hangars in feeder airports that we can identify in the Midwest, in growth areas, that are actually the municipality or city or county leasing. The big trend in the 80s and 90s was to land lease and to sell property. Newark fell into that trap. Delaware has kind of gone into that trap. They own very little property. So these are airports that actually is operated and leased by the municipality. You could go to Butler County, but you're going to pay whatever that person who owns the property and built the hangar is going to charge. And therefore, we just don't know that information because it's a private company. So Nashville, Kansas City, Indianapolis, Kansas City again. Again, in these higher 2,000, 1,000 is kind of a low range, but if you've looked at the picture of that hangar, you can kind of tell why. But the economics here are that it's really what the company is willing to pay to base their operations. In the whole scope of a corporation, what they lease a space for their aircraft is small. It's a month's worth of, it's one flight worth of fuel is their month's rent. So what we've done is plugged in a monthly lease rate of $1,200 per hangar. Pretty low when you compare it to the other ones. And the reason we did that is because we don't have a corporation that's saying, hey, we want to be here. We have existing tenants. But if one comes down the pipe, we know that we're going to have the opportunity to change that lease rate based on the circumstance. So construction cost, this is all times two, right? So there's two buildings. This is a one building approach. Approximately $1.5 million just for the development of the hangar.
One building.
One building of two hangars. With that $1,200 a month, it'll annual 28,000. We did not figure a 95% occupancy because we anticipate signing longer, 5-year, 6-year, 7-year, as long as we can leases to really, it's good for the tenant and it's good for the county. The turnover is less. We want to offer a custom built opportunity where, as we do this proposal process, if you want an office space and you want to build out a certain way, we'll do that, but it's going to be an increase in that rent. So this is really just the base number of the shell. We anticipate that these rents will be unique and will definitely be north of the 1,200 based on the proposed tenants' wants and needs.
So is there any firstness to the T hangars being discussed first?
As far as a priority, I think it ranges. If you took a poll of the airport, it would be the general aviation guys saying, man, we really need T hangars. But that's not offering the driver, I think, that commercial hangars would bring. I think that if we had these commercial operations going and businesses in there, it's going to be a different kind of growth for the airport.
Let's touch on one building versus two for just a second.
Yeah.
If construction companies have mobilization and a demobilization component to their bids, if you will,
Mhm.
What's your take on the math differential between a contract to build two and a contract to build one and a second contract to build one? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So
The only cost I can think of is the mob and demob, but there might be others that I'm not thinking of.
there is, but there is more so on a steel frame building. So we do have the option in this size to be wood frame or steel frame. Your SWAT garage was steel frame, but the garage we built next door to it was wood frame. In this size, you can do either or. Wood is it's not tremendously cheaper anymore. It is cheaper, but not tremendously cheaper. Mobilization on wood frame is less because those vendors are more local. You can get the materials at Menards. Steel frame, so I talked to Sutherland, who built your SWAT garage. Their mobilization would probably be on average of like, if you figured in, you'd probably save 5% by doing two buildings at once. And that's just because you've got the same people pouring on the same day and the same people erecting on the same day. So there's a small benefit there, but with the cost of materials and labor, in the end, it's not as much as you'd hope. So just to look at what one would look like. Again, we have that build to spec aspect, but we would have a point where we can offer upgrades per cost built into that rate schedule. We have zero availability still in Central Ohio, even since May when we talked last. There's not anything there. Newark is building one. They're building one for someone specifically. They've already had that, and they wouldn't have built it had somebody not asked them, please build this for us. Because Newark finally said, hey, we're not going to sell any more property. We still have 70 developable acres. Even if we filled up this whole side, we still have a parcel that's 70 acres that's ready with internet and water and sewer and anything else. If that large corporation ever says, we just want to move everything here. We hear things. We hear that, you know, this company's looking to expand. This company wants to base operations and fly to their location. We're ready. We have one of the few rotorcraft service shops in the area. And if we end up with a dealership, I think we end up with a really great foothold on helicopters. The last one, which I'm going to be honest, I'm not as thrilled about. I love the idea of a community-based hangar. This is a hangar where you can put 12 airplanes on day one, kick them out, and put a business aircraft, a jet, someone who's here for a month, and put them in there. The reason I don't love this project today is I don't have a management structure that will work to maintain this hangar. And I know it's important to the airport and to the growth of the airport, but I don't have anyone there today who I would trust to move those planes in and out and move that new jet in and service that jet and make sure everything's tip top. I think it's an amazing project, and it could bring us that big fish, but I just don't have anyone there that can handle it, in my opinion. And that's hard to say, but we use a process in which we solicit for proposals to operate the airport. And right now we only get one proposal year after year.
I understand. So what's the math on that?
This one, 1.65. Again, we're using $140 a square foot. It's a little high. Things have started to even out, not greatly. And I think our total return on investment was the whole 30 years plus. It would never end up being a generation just on its rent alone.
I know that for depreciation and other reasons that a lot of people use a 30-year horizon on building usefulness, but what's an actual?
Steel frame could be 50, 60. Actually, wood frame, if you talk to the wood frame contractors with the adjustments they've made in concretes and things like that, materials, wood frames can go 40, 50, 60. On our airport now, we have a hangar A was built in 1964 and it was moved and it still looks pristine. You were in it. I mean, it's a great looking hangar. So I think 30 years is just the horizon of payment, not really the horizon of usefulness. Again, kind of the layout, what you don't see is that where we would propose to put that T hangar is right in this grassy area. Probably not a whiz bang, it just looks like the rest of them, but for the people there, that's really close to the terminal. It's close to the restrooms, it's close to hanging out and eating donuts and having fun. That's what brings them to the airport. Our fuel station is right here, so again, another driver for that. We really want to focus this other area into a corporate park area. One of the key projects that are in our list that is now a public out there kind of project is a new entrance to that airport. I think it would be a huge benefit. And that's one thing that we're really trying to convince the FAA it's a worthwhile project. It's a big project, but we would love to be able to connect into the Meyer type corporate area. There's a possibility and it can happen. And I think it would be a huge benefit to the airport, which would really give us a way to have commercial access to go to Columbus within 25 minutes, 30 minutes. Especially with all the work that's being done in the Pickerington area.
Commissioner Fix?
Yeah, so thank you for dreaming big like we asked you to. I think this is all really good stuff that we need to take a very, very serious look at. I mean, it makes sense to me that we make this investment and use it as an economic development tool. A couple of questions I have really don't have to do with construction, more with the length of the runway and the approach.
5,004 feet. And our approaches are okay today.
Right.
They are.
From what I understand, if we lengthened our runway a little bit, we could bring in a different class of jet.
That's correct. And the work that was partially done, let's see if I have a decent map. Don't. The work that was done with Election House was, so runway length is one piece of a larger aircraft landing here. The approach is the other, and you know the answer because you mentioned the approach in your question. Our approach is, if we extend it, is hindered by what people would call Shinsdale, which is 158 and the River Valley Highlands. So the farther your runway goes out, the closer it gets to those, the approach plane goes right into that hill. So we could extend, but our approach would be limited. So we'd be back in the same scenario where the Election House Road changed our approach and we could only use 3/4 of the runway. We can use a full 5,004 feet of the runway today because our approaches are there. What could be more advantageous and that we have in our master plan, but a little bit longer, is grooving the runway. And that will allow a little bit more leeway on landing, especially in bad weather. But we can land every jet that goes anywhere in the United States. We cannot land an international jet, but very few people can. You need almost 6,000 feet. And no one in central Ohio has that outside of the big three.
So grooving the runway would be more important than lengthening the runway due to our approach.
More economical, for sure, certain, and give us a lot of added benefit at a relatively low cost. We are now in a project where we're removing a culvert under the runway that kind of creates a unevenness, and once that project's done, it's our next paving move on the FAA side. There's also a concept called displaced threshold where you take off from one way, extend, but really landing is the problem. We all joke that the more economical way to extend runway is to bridge over 33 because it would be very expensive to go the other way.
Okay.
And if you remember, maybe none of you were on board at that time. The 2005 master plan designated a crosswind runway that was almost 6,000 feet, and essentially the pipelines are what really changed the look on that. It was almost going to be a fight to get that built, plus a lot of property acquisition.
So what is your ask of us today?
Just the consideration. I mean, we're at a point now where this master plan lives for 10 years. That's its shelf life. We're going to accomplish all the other goals that are independent of these. We're always going to be full. We have a decent operating carryover. When I started, one of the main things the board said is stay in the black, right? Don't come to us for money. There's a small capital outlay from the commissioner, $75,000 a year. That covers non-grant eligible paving. That's what that does. Other than that, and the grant matches, which are 5 or 10% of the award sometimes, we make money at the airport. So we don't make enough to build our own hangars, but we would continue as is and continue selling the airport and hoping that there is an investment and that we would still continue to discuss the land lease option with your permission. And we currently have 2 land leases on the property now, though for us, that really hampers your path forward long term.
Thank you.
Mr. Levesey? So, very well presented, John.
Thank you.
So, your estimated construction cost, I think you mentioned the last time that could be a fairly firm number because the people that do that, that's the number, you get those numbers.
Yeah, they're just wrapping up Newark's hangar. They're the architect and engineer on Newark's hangar, which is almost a spitting image of our T. We know these costs pretty well. What the unknown that our engineer, I can't see the invite list, but Greg might have joined us. The unknown is what we can get in post frame in wood construction, because we have 3 quality post frame builders in the county who love to do work and can do it well. We may see a reduction in that if we go post frame. And what we would do is bid it either way. Just like the SWAT garage, metal or wood, you propose both.
So, for my 2 cents worth, or 1/3, I should say, if I had a choice between wood or steel, it would be steel every day of the week. But if there's a huge difference, then maybe considering, you have to remember you tore down one wood constructed building because it was deteriorating.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've talked to Sutherland, who the company who builds the SWAT garage. They obviously said they'd love to come right back down and work again, but there's a lot of manufacturers and builders in the whole area. These are not complicated buildings, right? Like we're building an office space. They're pretty simple to design and build. And we have great property that's ready to go.
Very good, thank you.
So, I would say that I'm interested in the borrowing costs on projects 1 and 2. Some analysis as to what that payment would be, so to speak. Let's say full boat 1 and 2, like you do the T hangar and.
It's about 3.5 is the total.
Well, let's do all three if we're doing
Not, you mean 2 corporate?
all 3 projects. You're talking about the first 2 projects?
I'm talking about, the T hangar and then the 2 corporate buildings,
Oh, okay.
but not the third.
The
The Mascot doesn't have operational.
Right, okay, all right. So all 3 of the projects you outlined, less the community hangar.
that build would be about 3.5 for the facility. We have some road development, things like that we would go through grants potentially or use some of our, we have to make it work, but
What, does anybody know what the bond number would look like right now?
We have a meeting tomorrow,
To look at that?
bonding in general, yeah.
So, I'm not opposed and certainly not saying no. I'm just saying I would want some analysis on the cash versus the debt scenarios. And then, I don't know, and I can't remember the details on this, Carrie, but I know there's some complications here. But if the general were to pay cash, somehow I want the general paid back. Is there a way to do that?
You can issue bond anticipation notes too, which might make sense for this particular project.
So can you give us some information on what that annual cost would look like?
Sure.
On carrying the debt, if it were to be debt? And then on the cash side, how that would be recovered for the general?
certainly. I will ask very smart people about this exact question.
So I think just another thought, Bert and I were kind of talking about this today. I know the secret sauce here is in the numbers that you haven't put up, that you can't put up. The spinoff, the echo chamber of the activity. I mean, there's.
Yeah.
You're favoring these projects isn't based on the math you just showed us.
No.
Because that's I was gonna use a back cliche there. I won't.
If you build it, they will come.
No.
That's what I was going to use.
It's a pretty even Steven.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to generate on its own revenue for the general fund. And even the domino effect, the echo effect of it probably won't directly impact the general fund so much. But I just have to believe, I guess, maybe it's a gut, maybe it's just been told the story too many times, but there is an opportunity to look like some of these larger feeder airports that if you go to Lee's Summit in Kansas City, that airport and its growth, and I talked to the, by way of email, through that growth of that airport and another outside Atlanta, within 10, 15, 20 years, they went from us to they went to having traffic that's unbelievable and corporations based there. I don't ever want to see a day where we have like commuter. We're not going to fly Legion out of the airport. But if we have the companies in Central Ohio that have their own personal jet aircraft, we want them to be here.
It's a piece of that whole economic development puzzle, right? We're doing all this stuff to, build the road infrastructure that allows us to get through Fairfield County easier and to get to Licking County easier. We're working on the housing piece of it. We're working on, landing those companies to come in. We're doing the workforce development to fill the jobs that they have. This is all part of that puzzle, and the airport, to me, over time, becomes a really important piece of that puzzle.
You guys want to straw poll this or just keep getting more information?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in doing this. I'm really interested in doing it the most economical way possible, which is where I look to you, right, to, kind of lead that conversation. But to me, this is something we absolutely should be doing, especially in a time where we have the financial resources to make it happen.
And that whole statement was applicable to what I'm calling projects 1 and 2, which are 3 buildings. As of, not the community.
I'm talking about the 10-unit T hangar, the 64 60 by 60 box hangars, and the 100 by 100 corporate hangar. That's what I'm talking about. Not the community hangar.
Yeah, the 100 by 100 is the community. Sorry, it's corporate community,
So, all right, so you presented 3 different things.
3 different
The
things, so.
10-unit T hangar, the 60 by 60 box hangar, and the 100 by 100 corporate hangar.
I called it community. Community and corporate are
Okay.
interchangeable. It depends on the function, right? Today, it could be your corporation's margin.
So,
Unless we make wholesale changes on other ways we operate, I don't feel like I would,
if you lease that as a corporate hangar though, then it's one,
but if I build it tomorrow, the annual month and the corporation is not identified today that it will
Understood.
operate that big of a, it's gonna be to generate revenue, it has to be a community hangar. And I don't know that I wanna put 12 planes in there. It would solve a problem quickly. It would solve our wait list problem, because people would be able to live in a hangar. But if you're the guy in the back, somebody has to bring 4 airplanes out to get yours out. That's a charge.
all right. So I would be interested in understanding the financial situation for all 3.
Mhm.
And then to have a conversation down the road of, can we market that as a corporate hangar for one entity?
And it absolutely, that's what we would do, because we would from day one want it to be that corporation that wants to base here, and we would essentially.
And if you have to sit on it for 6 months to get that, instead of trying to move 12
years.
well, it could be.
It'll generate revenue.
Today's
In the
economic
meantime.
environment, I would say it's more likely to be.
You gotta hire somebody.
No, I'm not talking about that. If need be, leave it sit empty for 6 months until the right corporate customer comes along that will rent the entire thing, instead of filling it with 12 different aircraft and having to move around.
All right, on the straw poll question, Mr. Levesey, you spoke up immediately and said yes. I just want to make sure I understand what were you saying yes to?
1 and 2.
Can I ask a follow-up? Is this a come here today and we have a successful plan, but don't come back for another 30 years? That would be my only caveat to leaving out the corporate, because I think there is a day in the very near future where a corporate would be critical to taking the next step in having a managed airport that really goes above and beyond. So if we cut it off today and don't ever come back and ask for it again, I'd hate to do that. That'd be short-sighted.
Testing that, and I'm not, nothing's written in stone in terms of my opinion on the corporate hangar issue. There are probably circumstances or facts that would maybe move me a little bit more in that direction. I mean, right now, I'd probably say, I'm not feeling it. In part because you just said you weren't feeling it and you're the presenter.
Oh, because I'm not in charge of it.
However you want to say it. But let's just imagine a scenario where, these projects are bundled in some way, right? And then your MOB and your DMOB and your costs is X if you do it, all now, and Y if you do some later. If there's that kind of, there could be some math there.
Sure.
That would be potentially, meaningful in the analysis.
What, just since May, the interest rate has impacted this project, right? I mean,
Well, if you're taking that.
So if I can move back a little bit, what I was saying, 1 and 2, three, but I'd like to see the cost of all three of those.
And the business plan.
Right.
I would 100% agree that we would want a solid business plan to operate Project C.
So I guess last point, I just want to be careful with this in this sense. I don't remember how many months ago this was discussed, but it feels like 6.
May 1st, and then we had a follow-up in
So, now we're talking about it again. And I just want to make sure that we stop talking about it. Right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's what you gotta do. You gotta sort these things out and you gotta make a decision.
Our board understands there's a partnership, but the partnership only exists when you, the board, are willing to go forward. Right now, our plan is to continue to operate as we are right now for a long term and be successful and stay in the block and be a great place. But if we want to grow, we cannot move forward without your financial guidance.
How long will it take you to come back to us with a financing plan? Two branches to the financing plan, cash and debt.
Can I phone a friend?
Yeah.
I think I would have to have Terry and Jim and Rick. I mean, it's going to be a team effort to raise.
Can you do it in the next month?
I would say so, yeah. I'm getting not
Let's do that.
back in 1 month.
And then my suggestion is just that, but I think when we get that data in front of us, we give clear, unequivocal direction and stop talking about it one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you for that 14 minutes.
Oh, yeah, sure.
44.
Hey, to, I think probably Commissioner Fix, and then I'll say Rick and John and some of the others. I don't know all the ins and outs of how this conversation got pushed up and to this point, but I think it's a good conversation to have, and I think it's a good conversation to finish too. At
Muted.
time, you give folks who are visiting us, voters and taxpayers, an opportunity to address the commission. If you would like to do so, please begin by stating your name and residential address. We do have a 3-minute guideline, which we would appreciate your cooperation on. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission at this time?
Good morning.
Come on, Ryan.
All right.
It's good to be here today. We do come before you at this time, and we want to pray because of decisions like this that you're talking about. These are mammoth decisions to be made, and the taxpayers are going to be a part of it. So Lord, as we come before you this morning, we thank you and praise you for this time together that we can discuss openly and with sincerity in everything that's mentioned. The possibilities, Lord, we don't know, but we know that you know the future. And so we put this in your hands to guide and direct everyone that's involved in this, that they have the opportunity to look at it in every possible position. And we pray, Lord, that the people will listen to your directions. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Today, I'm bringing some news with views. Glenn Adams, and he is writing in his article, he's trying to wake up the remnant of the people in the Christian world. The war between God and Satan is a war between the spirit and flesh, a war with Satan and the power of darkness, a war in our mind with thoughts, a war against demonic cults, and Christianity against the mystery religions. This war has been since the beginning of time. And if you believe, as I do, that God created all of this, and he knew what he was creating when he did it. Now, when you consider this, when you do none of the things that they recommend in the scripture, the Bible, you are to do this. You are part of the kingdom of Satan if you do not follow what God has written. So it's this time when you take a look at things, we need to consider the whole scripture, not just a part of it. America is being destroyed because we lack knowledge from the Word of God and the Constitution. Today, operating in America is the influence of the threefold cord of demonic occult of Babylon, financial Babylon, political Babylon, and religious Babylon. This is all spoke about in the scripture. The Republic, America has been formed on this basis of being a republic. But now we're moving in the direction where very few control the operation of what this country is doing. And it shouldn't be that way. So that's the word I want to leave with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay. More news about COVID. Key scientist sounds alarm, and they're saying withdraw the COVID shots immediately. The jabs do not appear to be safe. And then there's Dr. Peter McCullough, he versus the system. A battle for his career. Yeah. Quote, we have a situation here where the American Board of Internal Medicine has completely lost all credibility as an independent, fair, balanced organization. That's a quote from him. And then most of you have read at some point that nationally renowned cardiologist, Dr. Peter McCullough, is one of the most successful clinical physicians to devote his energy and talent to saving COVID patients with successful early treatment protocols. And this subset article from Israeli physician Tina Heck underscores and details the ongoing outrageous international battle that is being waged against Dr. Peter McCullough. The article illustrates the true conspiracy of our federal government aligned with the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, and the media and the local governments. Next article, the American Journal, the Wall Street Journal, attacks Biden over COVID boosters. And you can watch it live. I have a website here, if you want truth, that is. Now, they do say that there's over 45 million viewers on this. Sure shows a small interest in this, doesn't it? So we have to ask, what have you been doing to have long presentations about the real facts and the figures? Or what have you not been doing to have long presentations about the real facts and figures? And we ask, has health or has money been the main object of each decision? I have been aware since 1976 and have been reporting about 1976 about health and what the pharmaceutical was doing. And I've also been reporting about COVID since April of 2021. One of you three even asked me last fall of 2021 if I couldn't report on something else other than COVID. But what else is affecting so many areas of life than health? I think I've said so much about this. I'm ready to almost give up here, but I don't think the Lord wants me to yet.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission at this time? We thank you all for coming. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Legal, anything?
Just wanted to briefly comment. We just wanted to thank the administration, Commissioners Administration for inviting us to participate in the CRMS training last week. I thought it was very helpful. We were grateful to speak to everyone. I know Ani had her folks speak. I know the auditor's office was represented and we also participated. So we want to thank you for that. I know that Stephen, you guys asked a question a couple weeks ago regarding sports betting. I know Stephen has some information you want to share with the commission.
Well, good. I was going to ask about that.
The short answer is it entirely depends on what the legislature decides to do, whether or not the county gets any of that money. As House Bill 29 set up, there is a revenue fund for sports gaming and gambling in the state of Ohio. That money is 10% of all the receipts taken by the sports gaming proprietors. After that 10%, it's taken into a general sports gaming revenue fund. That revenue fund is used first for administrative purposes in creating the tax, paying employees, things like that. And afterwards, 98% of it goes towards a sports gaming profits education fund. 50% of that fund is for sports gaming, or it's used for interscholastic activities and other extracurricular activities, grades K through 12. And the other 50% is for public and non-public education, again, through grades K through 12. All those appropriations are to be made by the General Assembly, and as the fund is only, the sports gaming education fund only receives money after 30 days after the first quarter, calendar quarter of each year and subsequent quarters. There's no money in the fund. The legislature has no drive to actually figure out what to do with that. And it's suspected that the money will be ultimately dispersed through the biennial process.
Understood. And so Bart and I talked a little bit about this issue this morning. I mean, I think what I appreciate the breadth of your answer. If I might summarize, the answer is no. But not being hard on you, you said it right, I'll say it my way. And so then I think what we do is we just monitor the casino revenue on a quarterly basis. And then we might perceive that some of that discretionary income that was going one direction might be going a different direction, is getting treated differently than, what the casino revenue is.
If I may also suggest, Commissioner, this is certainly something that you could raise to the elected representatives, both the state reps and the state senator for the area. And they could be able to assist in either further fleshing out how the appropriations process is turning out for these sports gaming funds, or better verify how exactly the money would be flowing towards the schools.
Understood. Any questions, my colleague, on those issues? Appreciate you getting back to us on that. Anything additional on legal?
All right.
Let's go to administration update.
Okay, ARP update from the 30.6 received. 20.4 has been appropriated, 10.9 expended, and 4.5 encumbered or obligated. And I think Jeff and Bart, you guys may have an additional update.
Sure. We have filed our fourth quarter federal report early. The due date was January 31st. We currently have meetings scheduled with some of the larger projects in the coming week. Village of Pleasantville, Village of Baltimore, the Walnut Creek Sewer District. We're getting those projects set up. The funds appropriated from unappropriated funds. So you'll see a jump in those appropriated funds shortly. And we'll be moving forward to get those projects on track. We also had a meeting briefly with the Adam board, and they are currently searching for a property to push forward their project.
And just, if anybody deserves a star or an asterisk in terms of projects that we should be concerned about, does Adam get the star?
That one, yes, and we're going to be keeping a close eye on Habitat for Humanity as well, and helping them in whatever way we can to get that project accomplished.
Understood.
So do we have a concern with the Adam Works timing right now?
Not at the current time. Their original prospect for property didn't pan out due to the market. So they're looking at another one, and we're going to get an update on it shortly.
Yeah, I'll say that a little differently. I had reservations about their timeline from day one. And so any information that influences a timeline that I started with, I mean, I said, yes, I'm in favor of it. I'm not saying that, but I always thought their timeline was, tough. And I, everything that we hear that suggests it maybe got a little tougher, right, is concerning.
Understood.
Yeah.
I would just like to say, good job to Jeff too, quarterly report, got everything out. Good job with that. And also that we are tracking the projects right now that he's been discussing is equating to about $8.6 million as we get going here through this first quarter. So lots of that activity will be gaining steam as we move forward.
Would either of you want to speak to the resolution that's on the agenda today for the Workforce Center? Or sorry, the Fairfield Center?
Yeah, the resolution that's on today is to consolidate the renovation projects. We were initially going to separate the buildings, but we have just determined that the renovation projects, due to the tenants that are going into certain places and the use, we're going to have that renovation project as a single project code. So we're appropriating that additional funding because that project is moving ahead full steam. Thanks to John and his staff. It's moving ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right, Governor's Executive Budget. We did send an updated request for Workforce Center budget needs there. Appreciate Rick and his work on that, and all the commissioners for advocating at all levels of our state government. Rick, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big ask, but it's needed. And, we continue, I think, to be a model for the rest of the state, but we don't have a funding mechanism other than frankly the three of you and any grants and stuff that we can put together. So hopefully the state looks at this as an opportunity to build this out and continue to use it as a model. But it's a big ask, and there's a lot of heavy lifting. So phone calls and show up at people's houses, whatever you need to do.
Cookies, Dave, cookies.
Yeah. Right. I really do appreciate all the support of the review process.
And I do think we had a good meeting with Director Dan Schroeder.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's supportive of it, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the money, right? What they're willing to invest.
So along that line, we continue to have conversations with Representative Ray, who is extremely supportive and has the support of the speaker. And we have I have a meeting set up with State Senator Schaefer next 10 days.
And the request is part of the review packet. I want to further evaluate that.
Senator Schaefer has it.
I appreciate the folks that are in these advocacy meetings. It's probably best that I'm not. I certainly would be, people thought it'd be helpful here or there. If I were in these advocacy meetings, I would probably express frustration on the history of the state supporting failure, which is their tendency. This county's broke and can't afford to build a jail, so we'll help them. And this county can't balance their budget, so we'll help them. And, they usually run around, propping up failure is a pretty standard operating procedure. And I think it'd be nice if they, jumped in on a little success once in a while. That's what I'd say.
That's what
I figured.
All right, moving on. The Lancaster Downtown Special Improvement District five-year renewal has come before the commission. The city prosecutor presented the 5-year renewal for our membership in the Lancaster Downtown Special Improvement District. The 1-year footage increase is 50 cents per year in the first 3 years, then 75 cents in the remaining 2. The agreement will be on the agenda for next week's meeting. And just for a frame of reference, this year it will be about $5,700 that we are paying through a special assessment to our taxes. Evening commission meetings, we have solidified those locations thanks to Rochelle for her work with the townships there. We did have 4 townships come forth offering to host. And you will see a resolution on for today's meeting identifying those locations. So the March 7th meeting will be at Pleasantville Community Center. Mayor Henderson, always very welcoming and happy to help in any way. June 13th, the Amanda Township Fire Department. August 8th, the Violet Township Wigwam Event Center. And November 28th at the Bern Township Fire Department. We appreciate the townships for being able to host us for those evening meetings. And lastly here during the update, the DECA district competition is taking place at the Workforce Center today. Lancaster High School is hosting this regional competition with over 100 students in attendance. And it there has a picture, sorry, it might just be on the rear screen. But there you go. My son is actually there helping. So I did get a picture to share with you all. DECA is a career and technical student organization. And both of my children participated in DECA at LHS, and they really benefited from that program. They were both in the marketing program, and my son went on to win at the state level. So he is heavily involved, still stays in touch with the teacher to help those students, but really remarkable program. And Lancaster High School has a huge one. I know other schools in the county do as well, but thanks to the Workforce Center for hosting that. It's a great space for them to be able to do that. My son has never been in the Workforce Center. He hears me talk about it all the time. And he texted me today and he says, wow, this is awesome. And some of you know that he does robotics. That's his profession. And so he was sneaking around, taking a look at the stuff and very impressed with what we're doing there. So nice to hear a little outside perspective. Rick, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, the staff, facilities, and our team does a good job helping us out. I mean, we tell the schools, whatever you need, we want to be here to help with education. And, we're promoting Workforce Center. These students come in, we share social media stuff with them, and we try to get as much as we can. We've really just partnership with the schools more and more. In February, we're doing a mock interview day for almost 300 Lancaster students. How to really well, and some folks who make this room are helping with interviews, and we're organizing that entire thing. So, it's not most counties don't have county government helping on the education and workforce side. I mean, not quite frankly the way that we do here. This is another example.
Okay, highlights of resolutions. Review packet contains a list of administrative approvals, and there are 28 resolutions for the voting meeting today. We already talked about the ARP one for the Fairfield Center. Also the resolution amending the locations for the 2023 review session and regular meetings. And then we have a resolution to approve a change order with a contract with Walsh Construction Group for the Fairfield Center. And this is a slight reduction, odd for a change order to go in the reducing area. John, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so this reduction is due to what we've asked to stop work on that center plot as we kind of retool for a potential new design and new tech.
All right. And then lastly, there are 2 resolutions on approving contracts, one with Hawking, which is a renewal for inmate housing, and then Benton is a new one. These are both for approximately 20 inmates, or up to 20, I should say, at a rate of $92 a day. Art, going to do a sales tax update for us.
Yes, sales tax, we just got preliminary numbers for February, and they came in strong again. Came in about 7% higher than the previous year. I took a look at this, and if I look at the model of the $25.1 million, I an extrapolation of that. And it looks like right now, it's coming in roughly about $900,000, or about 3.4% higher than what our original plan is. So looking strong at this moment.
Thank you, Bart. Recognition, County Auditor Dr. Brown thanked the GIS team for leading the way in managing U.S. Census-related reports for all entities within the county. County Auditor Dr. Brown thanked the County Auditor's payroll team for creating 2022 W-2s in record time. County Auditor Dr. Brown thanked Rachel Elsey for creating the virtual dog show. It ends at the end of January. County Auditor Dr. Brown thanked Nick Dilley for quickly creating a map as part of a media request. And thanks also to Josh Harper for helping with other requests for information for multiple parcels and districts. Thanks to Bart and Jeff for the work on the ARP reporting. I know that, it ends with, we completed the ARP report, but a lot goes into it behind the scenes. So thank you to you and your teams for your work on that. And then we've been getting a lot of great feedback for one of our new employees in IT, Greg Irvine. So just want to give him a shout out. He's hit the ground running and making a lot of people happy there with his level of customer service.
Thank you, Ani. Dr. Brown, you had a comment or question?
I was just going to mention, I recalled in October during the budget hearings, we talked a little bit about monitoring sales tax and that we'd be very open-minded about changing the estimate. We would look at that quarterly. So, we've got a couple of months that we can review now, and we can think about that on a quarterly basis. Thought at that time it was likely lower than what would be expected. Wanted to see that in perspective to all of the revenue sources as well.
Yeah, I think one thing I probably didn't give as much thought to as I could have in terms of like our side of the equation, if there are sides to that equation. While I remain convinced of some looming economic turmoil in the form of recession or something. I probably didn't give as much thought as I could have to the stickiness of the inflation component and how that's probably impacting that revenue stream. I mean, even if the economy contracts by 2%, which would be pretty significant, if inflation's hanging around at 4%, then the sales tax revenue probably doesn't experience that recession in the way that it would historically if inflation remains so high.
Definitely are multiple factors and many different variables. We're looking for that sweet spot overall, about 105 to 110% of general fund. It's comparing actual to estimates.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Rochelle, calendar review and invitations received, please.
Under the Commissioner's calendar review, this afternoon at 2 o'clock, we have Economic Development Strategic Plan Steering Committee kickoff meeting. And at 6 o'clock, the South Licking Watershed Conservancy District meeting at the Heath Municipal Complex. On Thursday, we have at 12 o'clock, the Mid-Ohio Development Exchange Annual Meeting, and that is at the Fairfield County Workforce Center. Under invitations received, we have the Walnut Township Trustees Special Meeting on February 1st at 7 o'clock. That is at the Pleasantville Community Center. The Canal Winchester Chamber Annual Dinner and Awards Night on February 24th at 6 o'clock. That is at the Brew Dog Tap Columbus in Canal Winchester. We have the State of Pickerington, which involves the City of Pickerington, Violet Township, and Pickerington Local School District on March 16th at 11 a.m. at the Wigwam Event Center.
Michelle, can you put me down for that one and for the Walnut Township Trustees meeting, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, would you calendar me for both those as well, please?
Why not? Nate?
Can't be left out.
I can't be left out.
Well, yeah, I like to go to everything, so. It kind of fits my pattern.
All right, Rochelle, keep us moving.
Okay, under correspondence, we have an email proposed by Economic and Workforce Director Rick Sabrak. The subject is the Fairfield County Workforce Center biennial budget revised request. We have a letter from Manic Smith Group The subject is notification of solid waste transfer facility permit to install application Lancaster Solid Waste Transfer Facility. The Ohio Division of Liquor Control sent a liquor permit transferring from one permit number to another. We have an email from Auditor's Office Communications Officer Rachel Elsey. Subject 2022 tax rates updated on the real estate site. Lancaster Fairfield County Hotel Survey with a deadline of February 1st. A letter from the City of Lancaster regarding public hearing for proposed Lancaster City transfer station. That is on February 13th. A letter from the Director, Ohio Department of Health, Bruce Vanderhoff, regarding survey to support the state health assessment and state health improvement plan. A memo from the Fairfield County Auditor, Dr. Carrie Brown, subject budget commission, tax estimator tool, Tyler Technologies credit, dog registration deadline and virtual dog show, homestead program, MCJDC reporting, and U.S. Census reporting. Correspondence also from the Auditor's Office, subject fiscal officer duties for the multi-county juvenile detention center. A memo from Dr. Carrie Brown, and then MCJDC 2022 management letter and financial statements. A furtherance of justice and law enforcement trust fund December statement, which is in regards to the prosecutor's office 2022 corresponding reports. Health Department announcement, the Fairfield County Board of Health named F. David Petty, the 2022 recipient of the Public Health Guardian Award. Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities sent their Imagine newsletters, and we have 3 flyers. One from on the Polar Plunge, which is part of United Way, a flyer from the federal law changes on SNAP, and a flyer on pre-tax preparations also from United Way.
Thank you, Rochelle. Jail population, last week it was 248 with 20 of those being contracted placements. Today the sheriff reports 239 with 22 of those being contracted placements. The sheriff did offer an additional note. The Meigs County Sheriff is new to his office, and historically that's where the largest number of our placements have come from, and recently those have been at 0. So the sheriff is trying to do a reach out there and have a conversation with that sheriff to learn more about operations that are currently taking place. That's all I have.
Old business, Commissioner Hicks.
So we had a nice visit with Congressman Balderson last week, came in to see our workforce center and was very complimentary of all the work we're doing there, and excited about, kind of Fairfield County taking leadership role in the state. He also commented, he and his staff also expressed deep appreciation to our facilities crew for all the work that they've done up in that office that Congressman Balderson now occupies in the Fairfield Center. Couldn't say enough good things about the great work that your crew is doing up there, John. So please pass on our thanks and the Congressman's thanks. It was good to have him in and to be able to show off a little bit. We're excited to have Congressman Balderson as our United States representative, and I mentioned to him kind of on an aside as things were wrapping up that we don't have a financial ask of them right this minute, but there probably will be one someday coming down the pike that we're going to ask for their financial assistance for the workforce center. And finally, I attended the CCAO board meeting this past Friday. CCAO continues to advocate on the state budget. Don't totally agree with all the priorities, but the big one for me is the restoration of local government funds.
Do they feel that there's to be made there?
Of the 3 or 4 priorities, that's the least likely one that will get fully, put back in place. But I think, the pattern that I've seen in my now 5 years is part of that is that they start, here and they get it introduced, and the next year they push more, and next year they push more. By the time they get to the 3rd or 4th year, they get results out of that. So it may take several years of pushing, but I think the state financial situation is such that they have got to put their money somewhere in the relative near future. Restoring some level of local government funds would be a positive step. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Levacy under old business. I agree with everything Commissioner Hicks said.
So, okay. Staying under old business, as my colleagues may recall, after last week's meeting, Anya and I had an administrative meeting with Tasman Carter to go over the RLS proposal. That's the company that would kind of study the transit system as it exists and make recommendations as to how, if at all, it might be improved. Part one. Part two would be to kind of give us some administrative and fiscal guidance on what the transfer of governance might look like if the county were to accept responsibility for transit from the city of Lancaster. The point of that meeting was to discuss and analyze proceeding with that proposal on our own, so to speak, versus awaiting the potential grant process at the state level to have that study be grant funded. And the bottom line, lengthy meeting, but the bottom line was it appeared that going through the grant process for that study would probably cost us a year. And when I say cost us a year, I mean that in the sense that if there's ever to be a transfer of governance of transit, it would probably be best if that occurred in a manner that lined up with the fiscal calendar. And transit operates on a calendar fiscal year. And the process associated with the grants and so forth, we'd probably be looking at a late fall at the earliest to initiate the contract with a horizon. Currently, we've asked for this to be shortened, but a horizon currently of 6 months to do the work. And so then that puts us into 2024 in that scenario, which then would be kind of a target for transfer of governance to, say, January 1st of 2025. Collectively, between County Administrator Portal, Transit Director, Tasman Carter, and myself, we were all locked on not wanting to definitively cost ourselves that year. We may lose that year anyway for other reasons, but we want to start off knowing we've lost that year. And so our recommendation is clear and unequivocal that we proceed with the RLS contract. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that issue.
I agree with your timeline. We don't want to go out 2 years.
The cost of that contract?
$49.9, Paula.
Thank you.
So Anya is working administratively with RLS on a couple of issues associated with their proposal. I mentioned one, which is they projected a 6-month horizon to complete the work. We've asked for some information on that timeline. Asked if maybe there's any way there could be shortened without compromising the product. Staying under old business and staying with transit, I thought it'd be interesting to just mention a couple of things. Sunday morning, I did a number of trips from an Uber standpoint. Took 3 workers to Walmart, different trips, 2 workers to Raising Cane, 1 worker to Target, and 1 worker home from Anchor. That was just one morning. That was all the trips, and every one of them was getting somebody back to work. That's a microcosm. The broader math is probably something on the order of, say, 70% of the trips are people just trying to get back and forth to work. It's kind of cool. The other one, which is a little more entertaining and
kind of shocked me. I picked up this drunk guy. And what he needed to do is he needed to go to Walmart. He was trying to exchange a $50 like gift card or rewards card or something. Because the prostitute that he ordered from Instagram didn't like the rewards card that he was going to use for payment. And so he needed to exchange that gift card for a different gift card that the prostitute wanted. Which I found shocking on a number of different levels. Not that there's prostitution going on, I kind of figured, but that somehow rewards cards are involved in that and Instagram's involved in that. I learned a lot about how that's working these days. That was Sunday. Anything else under?
We can't talk that.
Okay. Share that because there's a lot of stuff going on out there that didn't happen in the circles we run. New business, Commissioner Levis.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Fix.
So I'm excited to participate in the Economic Development Strategic Plan kickoff meeting this afternoon. Eagerly anticipating, what that's going to look like. Had a good interview with the folks from Planning Next last week. So yeah, it's exciting to see how that's going to roll out.
Is there any other issue item that anybody would like to bring the attention to Commissioner or new business, Dr. Brown?
The new income threshold for the homestead program is $36,100. We have about 8,500 homeowners participating in the homestead program. That's about 6% of the owner-occupied homes in Fairfield County. It's becoming increasingly used. I know that there is some legislation in draft form that's being introduced to increase the income threshold, and would be supportive of that because it helps senior citizens, those who are disabled and veterans, stay in their home. So just wanted to give you an overview, a very quick snapshot of the level of that program and the magnitude of the homestead program. Also wanted to mention that the packet that I sent earlier included some MCJDC reporting. What I did not include was the amount of the indirect costs associated with the relationship of being fiscal officer as opposed to serving as a vendor. And that is about $104,000 in 2021 dollars, which would be charged in 2023. And then the most new thing is not been provided to you yet, but you'll be the first to know that the map I'm up for February is the Stonewall Cemetery, which was formerly called President's Cemetery. And so with February including President's Day, that's why it was selected as the February map of the month. And you get bonus points if you can tell me which president it relates to who had the deed to this cemetery in Fairfield County. No.
I was going to guess Jackson, but I didn't want to be wrong.
It's Stonewall, yeah. Stonewall only reports to the wall that is stone that is there. It is, anybody want to say?
Is it Thomas Jefferson?
It is the little known but very productive President James Monroe.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
There's no evidence that he actually ever did anything with the deed or put it, or there's no evidence of any family members there, but he actually owned the deed to that at that point in time when Thomas Ewing had surveyed the property. So if you want to learn more about that, there's a really unique map that'll be coming out for February.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Any other new business?
You only over your left.
Where? Oh,
Your sheriff's office storage garage is complete and training will happen all throughout the week. We're moving in and all wrapped up by Friday. SWAT, I didn't want to call it SWAT.
so the renting of the other facility stops when
January 31st.
in this month. Okay.
Is it true that SWAT theme music is on loop out there playing all the time?
I think you'd have to ask the gentleman in the back corner, but I would do that carefully. No, it's a great facility. I mean, if you get a chance to pop out, take a look, in its completed state, you'd be really impressed.
That's awesome.
But let us know or else, you'll get arrested.
Yeah, which, I know how to do that.
Mr. Chairman, due to the length of our review meeting this morning that you've run. I'm just hoping we might take a 5-minute recess before we get in a voting pattern.
We'll do that shortly. It's the hand stop. Dan? Oh, you've cut him off.
Nothing from.
Judy?
I forgot to give these to you three.
Okay.
I don't want to forget. I know you read them thoroughly.
Thank you.
I actually don't.
Any other issue item? And given Commissioner Fix's age and infirmity, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, because of that, and then we'll have our voting pattern. Thank you.
One nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you.
Get stuck.
Michelle, do we have any announcements?
We do not have any announcements today.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes for January 17, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Minutes past 3-0. From the Commissioners, we have Resolution 2023-1.24.a, a resolution to approve and authorize use of American Rescue Plan fiscal recovery funding and appropriate from unappropriated fund with County ARP Fiscal Recovery Fund number 2876 for the renovation of the Fairfield Center.
The Commissioners, I move items A, B, C, D, and E. Second.
As we mentioned during review, the American Rescue Plan resolution is to consolidate the renovation costs for the Fairfield Center.
Thank you. Further discussion? You just mentioned on the, I'll use my words and you all use the proper. On the ARP spend down scenario, for you folks on IAC, your cash position in IAC needs to reflect the expectations of spend down.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
And I believe Jeff has been in touch with Treasurer Bonson regarding that as well. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yes.
Just over time, conversation takes place.
Yes. Good. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. From the County Auditor, Resolution 2023-1.24.f, a resolution to appropriate from unappropriated in a major expenditure object category, Reese Peters Hotel Motel Tax 2423.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. From Fairfield County Court of Common Pleas, Resolution 2023-1.24.g, a resolution to appropriate from unappropriated in a major expenditure object category, Fairfield County Common Pleas County Probation Fund 2365.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yeah.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. From Economic and Workforce Development, Resolution 2023-1.24.h, a resolution approving an account-to-account transfer in a major object expense category.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. From Fairfield County Emergency Management Agency, Resolution 2023-1.24.i, a resolution authorizing an EMA fund-to-fund transfer.
Under Fairfield County Emergency Management Agency, I move items I and J. Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. From the Engineers Office, Resolution 2023-1.24.k, a resolution granting Jeremiah Up, County Engineer, and staff permission to attend.
Under Fairfield County Engineer, I move items K, L, and M. Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. From Facilities, Resolution 2023-1.24.n, a resolution for approval of change order number 3 to the contract between the Walsh Construction Group LLC and the Fairfield County Commissioners.
So moved.
Second.
This one we spoke of before.
Yeah, tell me again.
This is the slight reduction right now to account for the change and who's going in that middle section. We'll probably have an adjustment up at a later date once we know what the rental cost is.
All right, thank you. Further discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. From Fairfield County Family, Adult, and Children First Council, Resolution 2023-1.24.o, a resolution to approve a reimbursement for funds included in a returned Amazon check as a memo expenditure for Fund 7521.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
What is this?
It looks like when Amazon was doing a return, part of it for the engineer's office was included, so just doing the proper accounting to get it where it needs to be.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. For Fairfield County Job and Family Services, Resolution 2023-1.24.p, a resolution to approve a memo receipt and expenditure for Fairfield County Job and Family Services Fund 2018, reimbursing Fund 2072.
For Fairfield County Job and Family Services, I move items P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, and Y.
Second.
Discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. From the County Sheriff, Resolution 2023-1.24.z, a resolution authorizing the approval of a contract with the Fairfield County Board of Commissioners, the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office, and Hocking County Board of Commissioners, and the Hocking County Sheriff for housing prisoners in the Fairfield County Jail.
Under Fairfield County Sheriff, I move items Z and AA.
Second.
Discussion?
These are the two prisoner contracts that referenced earlier.
Further discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. On payment of bills, Resolution 2023-1.24.bb, a resolution authorizing the approval of payment of invoices to departments that need Board of Commissioners approval.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. The next regular meeting is scheduled for January 31st at 9 a.m.
Is there any other issue or item that anybody would like to bring to the attention of the commission at this time?
Mr. President, if I might. Looking at today's Lancaster Eagle Gazette, there's two items that are of particular interest to me on the cover, and I know you all can't see this, but the first one is up here where it's the Bengals who are on their way to the Super Bowl this year. So to all of our Bengal fans in Fairfield County, I shout out Who Day. I know, I just jinxed it, right, Dan? The second one, more importantly, is the idea of an outer belt, right? The second I-270 that we've been talking about here for quite some time, and we've been advocating our leg of that, the 3370 connector through our Transportation Improvement District. It's finally, now that Intel's on the map, finally starting to get some play. So, Commissioner Levesey and I were just talking. He suggested that this wouldn't happen in our lifetime, and I'm here to tell you it absolutely will. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
I meant my wife.
Okay.
To clarify.
No, the other issue item that anybody would like to bring to the attention of the commission at this time?
Well done today, sir. Thank you.
Content bridge. I'll accept the motion.
Move to adjourn.
I got a motion to adjourn. The second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The commission is adjourned. We thank you all for coming.